Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here tonight. My name is Dean Martens. It's a heck of a way to go through life. The idea of what we're going to be doing tonight is a passion of mine, and I'll explain exactly where that came from in starting what this whole lifestyle has been to get me to this point to be able to talk to you. Now, I'm a clinical herbalist and herbologist. Now, the difference between the two is the clinical herbalist understands the plant, the botanical, the herb, and how it works inside of us in our physiology. The herbologist understands how to take that plant and make the medicine out of it. Now, I do both of those things, and by the way, I absolutely love what I do. Isn't that kind of nice to hear someone say that? Now, to start off this whole talk, it's going to be a two-series talk in regard to how we lose the health, get it back, and the lifestyle, and then how we go to herbs and understand what an herb is and what it does and how it affects us. We're going to first make sure that we allow you to start to understand how we lose our health. Now, some of the things that I'm going to mention tonight are quite unusual to some of you folks. To some, it might be a confirmation. But ultimately, what I hope is going to occur tonight is that you are going to leave and you are going to understand the other paradigm, which is a belief system. We have all been taught a certain paradigm to think of health and or disease in a certain way. And I would like to have you know that it is almost exactly opposite from the truth. Now, for me to find this out, I'd like to give to you an understanding of where I came from. I'm going to satisfy your left brains. In other words, the left brain is somewhat the logical aspect of where we come from. And to accomplish that, I want to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from because of the fact, instead of you saying, God, he's saying some weird stuff, I want to make sure you know that I'm fairly okay in the first place. I came from Chicago. I was an electrical contractor at a very young age. I loved energy. I went from Chicago, went to Miami, and became an electrical engineer for Westinghouse, built the Pompano Fashion Square and a few other shopping centers down there. One day I was a little bit bored and I was at a jet set club that a friend of mine was building. In fact, it was in Miami. It was called the Jockey Club, and it was the jet set place of the Western Hemisphere. After about 5 martinis, one of the owners asked, gosh, Dean, we'd love to have you become a stockbroker for us, because he also owned a stock brokerage company. And I said at that time, sure, I think it's time to do something different. So I became a stockbroker. Ultimately became a principal and a partner in Raymond James and Associates, if you've ever heard of them. And then about 12, 13 years later, I was running Payne Weber down on Brickell Avenue in Miami. During that lifestyle, and by the way, let me say it this particular way, I had a great time getting sick. A great time getting sick. Do you appreciate where I'm coming from? In other words, I led a lifestyle that was totally sensuous. The idea of what we ate, what we drank, the whole particular energy of what we were doing. Now, this is not so far away from what an awful lot of people are doing out there in life today. But anyway, I started getting, gosh, colitis, ulcers. That's when your boss knows that you're working hard enough. I started getting the candida. I started getting the tremendous problem with rheumatoid arthritis, the deformation of the limbs. Then I started getting the osteo, where the discs were being filled up with bone spurs. In other words, I was getting to be a real mess. The idea of what occurred is I started feeling absolutely horrible, and I finally decided to leave that particular vocation. So I left investment and ultimately got a tremendous bid from AT&T to run their marketing division for the medical finance company that they had in Florida. I went into that area that was very bureaucratic, very political. It had a tremendous salary, and so it was into an area that I wasn't used to before, because everything before that time had been total commission. We now got into an area where it was very, very tremendously risky in regard to emotion, in regard to what we're doing every day, in regard to the aspect of why are we doing this, because we're making so much money and it's really not producing that much more as far as life is concerned. Anyway, end result is I started getting the arthritis in the hips, and then they really started fusing in the spine. At that particular time, when I could hardly walk, because of the fact that the bottoms of the meridians were filled with tremendous amounts of crystal. Has anyone ever heard of reflexology? Okay, the idea of reflexology, you go into the areas of the bottom of the feet, and there's these parts in the bottom of the feet which relate to your organs and your glands. Well, I had all of these meridians that were filled with this crystal because of the fact I was in trouble as far as my health was concerned, and I had a very hard time walking. So by that time I said, gosh, I think I've got to quit this whole idea of professionalism the way I knew it. So at that time, most of my buddies were doctors. Now I'm talking both sides of the fence. The allopathic, which were the MDs, the DOs, the cardiologists and such, and the other side, which were chiropractors, acupuncturists, clinical nutritionists, naturopathic physicians, and they all asked me a question and said, gosh, can we help you? Well, I only had one question for all the doctors, and they were great friends of mine. And the question was, yes, can you heal it? And both sides of the track said, Dean Martens, you've got two incurable, scientifically incurable diseases in regard to the both arthritises throughout my body. So that led me to one total great idea, and that idea was, I am definitely not going to study what they studied. Does everyone get where I'm coming from? In other words, why would I go and study something that didn't work? So I had a bit of intuition, and I actually went and decided to go and study all of Hippocrates' writings, which was an amazing. Anyone hear of Hippocrates? You know, the father of medicine? I'd rather call him the father of health. The idea here is all of his writings were amazing to read. Then I read Mises, Who Debated Pasteur, and Kellogg and Tilden and Graham and Kulvinskas, and Ann Wigmore and I became very close. And lo and behold, I got to find out what health was. I lived the lifestyle, I lived the technique, and I got all my health back. Now when I say all my health back, the ulcers, the colitis, and the arrhythmia all left within 3 months. That's amazing. The candida took me more than a year. In fact, most candida that's systemic is almost as hard to get rid of as the average cancer. And then the nodules on the fingers, by the way, they started going away in about 6 months. The pain started going away within about 3 months. But I have to say it took me about a year and a half to get the bone spurs off of the discs of the spine.